Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. Today on Wednesday, Chancellor Angela Merkel is meeting with the governors of the German federal states in order to find a compromise on what the new restrictions for the coming weeks should be in Germany. And preferably, as I said, they want to find a uniform solution for all of Germany, not different rules for different states. So the office of Angela Merkel, the Bundeskanzleramt, has already worked out a document that is a starting point for this discussion, and to the surprise of the governors, they found out about this draft from the media. That means Merkel gave that draft yesterday night, I think it was, first to the media and not to her negotiation partners. So that is her tactic. She wants to make her plans public first, and then when the public already knows, then she approaches these negotiations with the governors. In today's brief message here, I want to tell you what Angela Merkel's suggestion is here and what these restrictions are and what will probably happen in Germany, what kind of restrictions Germans have to live under in the upcoming weeks. But before we get into those details, I want to thank all my supporters and my subscribers. Like, share and subscribe. And also don't forget to check the bell icon to get notifications. If you want to support my channel, you can do so directly via PayPal or via Patreon or Subscribestar. Links in the description down below. Angela Merkel is painting a dramatic picture of the situation in Germany right now. According to her, time is running out and the second wave is already well underway. We see a lot of positive tests, as I mentioned earlier, but not so many mortalities yet. So based on this very, very low mortality number, she wants to shut down Germany for at least 3 to 4 weeks, she says. Well, that is the same thing they said in March, if we all remember correctly. First they say it's just 3 weeks and then it will be 3 months or until March or April, I don't know. But of course she has to say it is only for 3 weeks. It is a wave breaker, a quick and intense lockdown so that we can stop the exponential growth. That is what she says. But in reality, I think we all have to realize that these measures that they will decide on today will probably be in effect until spring next year. The planned restrictions are as follows. Bars, restaurants and cafes will have to remain closed. Only pick-up food or food to go is okay. All non-essential businesses, that means everything that doesn't sell food and maybe clothes, will also be shut down. Anything that has to do with entertainment, like cinemas, amusement parks, the whole range of cultural institutions such as the opera, concerts, theaters, everything needs to remain or become again shut. Of course, parties and events only until 100 guests or something like that, sometimes even less. Even in private homes, you cannot receive friends anymore. Only members of 2 different households will be allowed to meet in public or in private actually, and there are heavy fines if you do not conform to this. So that means in the future, policemen will again check what kind of people had meetings and do they live in 2, 3 or 4 different households. There is an SPD Social Democrat politician, Mr. Karl Lauterbach. He is a self-described health expert, and he said that even the private homes of people, their apartments and their houses, must be checked by the authorities to make sure that they are not meeting anybody there that they're not allowed to meet. So somebody who isn't their family member cannot be in their house then. And the police should be able to enter people's houses in order to check people's IDs and to check where they are actually living, so that you cannot receive private guests anymore. Of course, schools and daycare facilities should remain open because people should still, of course, be able to go to work under increased health restrictions, of course. So distance and masks and washing your hands and disinfecting your hands regularly. And the schools and daycare facilities are so important for primarily two reasons, of course. One is a direct and the other one is an indirect reason. The direct one is that daycare facilities and schools are, of course, government indoctrination centers. Here the state has access to our children and they can form their ideology and their minds very easily by brainwashing and propaganda. They can teach them there already that their family is their enemy, their ancestors were evil, and they're not supposed to talk to people and they have to put on masks at all times, and that the German state is, of course, their actual guardian and caretaker. Their families are the enemy, or in the best possible case, a danger to them. But the second indirect reason for leaving schools and daycare facilities open is also important. That is so that both parents can work full-time and generate tax revenue for the German state, of course. Without schools and daycares, that wouldn't be possible. So what does this translate into? What kind of life do Germans have to expect in the upcoming weeks, as the chancellor says, or as I tell you, based on previous experiences, for half a year actually, at least, if not until 2022. That means you are able to go to work, you are able to go grocery shopping, and you can bring your kids to a state-operated facility where they will be indoctrinated. That is pretty much it. Police will be checking if you have a good reason to leave the house. That means when you leave the house, a policeman will approach you and check your paperwork. If you are on the designated way to your workplace, or if you're bringing your kid to school or to daycare or to kindergarten, or if it is your turn this week to go grocery shopping. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I still remember how it was in the end of March. Our employers actually told us that we have to show policemen our ID card or our contract from work so that we don't get fined or arrested while we're commuting to our workplace. And this is exactly what they have in mind once again now. People will essentially be locked up at home and they will only be allowed to do the bare minimum of what is necessary to make sure that they can continue to go to work. That is all that counts for these people. Of course, family visits and entertainment and recreational activities are non-essential and will not be available to Germans. It will not be allowed to do these things. They explicitly stated that there won't be a possibility to celebrate Christmas, but they at the same time, they still use Christmas as kind of the carrot. Or in other words, they use as a stick the threat of taking away Christmas from German families. That means if we don't do this now, if we don't do this lockdown light or this wave breaker, this 3 weeks to 4 weeks intense measures, as they say, as they claim, then there will not be any Christmas. But how stupid do they think are the people, huh? Of course, there are stupid and naive people in Germany, but do the politicians really think that a majority of people thinks that they had not planned for this all along? And that no matter what we do now, that these measures will of course be prolonged with a different excuse every month until further notice? As I said, maybe until 2022 or even longer, or if that will in fact become the new normal. And it also goes without saying that this meeting between a chancellor and the governors of our German federal states is not a source of political power according to our constitution. The parliaments so far have not been asked at all about individual measures or about whether or not this is a reasonable thing to do. Sure, they voted on the budget, but that was pretty much it. A meeting that consists of the chancellor and the governors just doesn't have the constitutional power to decide these measures for all of Germany. especially when so much is at stake and when the actual scientific or medical facts are not really agreed upon in the first place. We don't even know how dangerous this is, and based on previous experience, it is not that dangerous actually. It just doesn't justify the means. And a lot of people, especially a lot of people who know a lot about our constitution and about jurisprudence in Germany, they said that this is highly questionable and the Constitutional Court would actually not allow these measures if it came to trial there. But that is maybe something for another video. Alright, so today is also one of these very special days where I have some praise for our Communist Party, Die Linke. The governor of Thuringia, Bodo Ramelow, and I covered in detail how this man got into power once again. He declared that he is highly unsatisfied about the way that this whole procedure is going, that the chancellor is just calling the governors and then they should basically just rubber stamp whatever she puts on the table on this agenda here. He said that he is a governor of a state and not just an employee in Angela Merkel's chancellor's office. And yeah, I kind of have to agree with Mr. Ramelow here, at least in principle. Alright, so I hope I could inform you a little bit about recent events in Germany and what the prospects are for the coming weeks and months. Whatever they decide today, and in any case, whether they find a compromise for all of Germany or not, it is very clear that especially in those states where the number of positive tests has been skyrocketing in the last weeks, there will be severe restrictions and even lockdowns. Even though compared to March and April we hardly have any casualties at the moment, the politicians are really amping up the hysteria and the scare and fear-mongering at the moment. So I have to assume that these measures will come anyway. Take care. Servus, Kameraden.